This is the discussion of the English 11 course syllabus. In this video, we'll be talking about the course description and what you're going to be doing this year. We'll talk about the methodologies and how we're going to go about doing things, the evaluation and how you're going to earn a grade, and then finally our class procedures, our classroom policies and rules. This year, you will have several units that are basically all focused on British literature. The theme of the overall year is transformational thinking, building a context for change using forward thinking. So it's kind of like taking the information you know, any information you will hopefully gather, and then using that to make an opinion, take a stand, see if you change what you thought about that or you still think the same. So we move chronologically through British literature. We start with your textbook, we end with a novel, but the whole first semester of your classes use the textbook, the black textbook we'll be getting. So your first marking period is focused on the Anglo-Saxons, and the major work we read from the Anglo-Saxon is an epic called Beowulf. Also part of the first marking period, we talk about the medieval time period and the knights, etc., and we read Canterbury Tales. In this unit is where you're going to be making something similar to an iMovie project. This is a lot of students enjoy this. You're literally going to be making a movie kind of modeled after the Canterbury Tales. In the second marking period, we talk about the Elizabethan time period and the Renaissance, and this is when we read Shakespeare's Macbeth. It is also when you start one of your research papers, but the research paper doesn't end until the third marking period. The third marking period, in addition to working on your research paper, we are also doing a couple of other things like prepping for your SAT test, some grammar and writing strategies and things like that. And then we also move into the Romantic and the Restoration time periods in British literature. This is where you do a poetry section where we watch the movie Dead Poets Society and you have a Dead Poets unit. And then we start talking about technology, and again, we're into your research paper. Finally, in your fourth marking period, we read the novel Lord of the Flies and we discuss the theme of evil. Of course, there's essay writing throughout all of the units. Like I said, we'll be working on SAT, ACT test taking skills, and there's poetry mixed in and grammar, all of those things mixed into every unit. What you will be doing in class, the methodologies, you'll be taking quizzes, tests, doing daily work, and then cumulative projects and papers. So there's not a lot of tests in English 11, maybe one or two a marking period. So if you're not a great test taker, as long as your daily work is being completed and you're putting forth effort in that, or you're doing a good job on your projects, it should help out your grade at the end of the marking period or the semester so that tests aren't really bringing you down. So on that note, it is important to be completing your daily work well, like putting in that effort. That daily work does measure content standards. It's not just completion work or busy work. So putting the time into that will really help at the end of the marking period. There's also no extra credit at the end of the marking period or the semester to help bring your grade up. So it's important that you're putting forth your best effort on that daily work, on the projects, prepping for those tests, and making sure you're caught up with your reading so that if we happen to have a quiz, you would do fairly well on it. We'll also be having SSR on Fridays, so we'll talk about that on another day because there's a whole separate handout for SSR. And then technology. So we have a lot of things this year that require the use of technology, from your research and your research papers to your movie projects for the Canterbury Tales and other work we'll be doing along the way. When you have projects that require the use of technology, you usually have more than enough time to get that done. So waiting until the last minute to, say, print off a paper, and it's the night before the paper is due and you might run out of ink in your printer at home, or you don't have paper or something, and so you come in the next day, and you don't have it completed, that's an incomplete assignment. I gave you all that time so that you could head off any problems like this. Don't wait till the last minute to try to take care of any technology issues. Make sure you're working in class when you have work days with technology, so that if you don't have access to a lot of these things at home, you can still get it done in school if you're working and on task. No late work unless, of course, there's family or medical emergencies. It's important to stay caught up with your daily work. This is how you're going to earn a grade. So all assessments evaluate Common Core standards. As I said, even your daily work is measuring some standard. So that's why it's important to always do your best on those daily assignments, even if they're only 5 or 10-point assignments. Those will add up quickly. A lot of students will come in and ask why their grade dropped so low. And it might just be because they missed a couple of those small 5-point assignments, but those start to add up really quickly. Included in your grade each marking period are participation points. So these will show up periodically throughout the year. Sometimes you might have some in a marking period, sometimes you may not. It just depends what the unit is calling for. If we're reading a play, for example, you're going to probably have more participation points. If we're doing a lot of group work or we're discussing a novel, you would have more participation points show up on your grade. And some marking periods, if we're doing research writing or papers or something like that, you might not see those participation points. So it is important when they are being graded that you are participating in class, taking on those roles and things like that, that when you're working in groups, you're on task, you're participating in the group, and that you're coming prepared to class with your homework, something to write with, the book we're reading, you are read up to where you're supposed to be in the novel or the textbook that we're reading, and of course that you're following classroom rules and policies. If you do those things, you should be maximizing your participation points when those do show up in PowerSchool for that marking period. Our classroom procedures, our classroom rules. Students are responsible for work whether you're absent or present. So if you're going to be absent, make sure you get the work. Please don't approach me at the start of class to ask what you missed the previous day, or if you've been gone for a few days and then you missed something. So we usually have 5 or 10 minutes at the end of class. That's when you should come and ask what you missed that day. Otherwise, come in before school or after school. Just make sure you let me know when that is so that I make sure I'm here for you. You have 1 day for every day you're absent to make up work. So if you were gone for 3 days, you have 3 days to make up work. But remember, if you're gone for 1 day, that next day you're responsible to get the work. That's a Kingsford High School policy. If you wait for 4 days down the road and I'm collecting an assignment and you weren't here that day and your comment is, I wasn't here that day, I didn't know we had that assignment, and we're 4 days past that absence, you've actually passed your time to make up that assignment. So it's important to stay on top of getting work right away when you're absent. All our KH rules are also going to be enforced, including the absences and the tardies. Remember, on your 3rd tardy, you would be issued a Saturday school, and clear water bottles with water are allowed in class. Our specific classroom rules ask that you come with your book, something to write with. You will need a folder for this class and your agenda in case you have to go anywhere. You're responsible for keeping all papers passed back to you in your folders in class throughout the year. Now this is important because a lot of students throw away their papers that are graded when they're passed back to them. You need to hang on to those papers for English. All the handouts I give you, when I return papers to you that are scored, please keep them in a folder and bring that folder with you to class every day. A lot of times we head into the 3rd marking period and I will ask you to take out an assignment that you did that was completed and graded and passed back to you from the 1st marking period. You need to have those papers or else you're going to get a 0 on that assignment. Please be respectful to each other. We have to work in cooperative groups in here. We have to give speeches, presentations, work with each other a lot in this classroom. So being respectful to each other makes that a lot easier all around. And of course, this is English, so no plagiarizing will be tolerated. Please don't copy each other's daily assignments or worksheets. That is plagiarism. And of course, don't copy and download information off the internet without citing it. That is also a form of plagiarism. We will talk more about actual plagiarism when we get into assignments where that's important, like for the research paper and things like that. Finally, our device policy. No devices are allowed in the classroom unless we're going to use them for a project that day or we have a work day and I tell you you can bring them in. So no devices, including headphones. If you wear headphones into the classroom, I'm turning them into the office. So please, no devices unless you're told ahead of time to do that. So that wraps it up. If you have any questions, the course description, methodology, evaluation, our classroom rules, they're in a lot more detail in that handout that you have. This was just a quick highlight of them, so please read through the rules, the classroom rules and procedures. Have your parents read through them. If either of you have questions, please make sure just to ask. And when you're all done and they're all done, please sign and date that back sheet and turn in that back sheet to me by Friday of this week for your first assignment. Thanks and have a great year.